Kia ora te iwi and welcome to The Chew. Coming at you from the Pūrako studio here in Te Atamira in Queenstown, New Zealand. Ko Arrowtown Dad tēnei, and today we are chewing the fat with Pearl Sidwell from Queenstown Fashion Week. Kia ora, Pearl.
Kia ora, Corey.
So what I'll get you to do is, can you introduce yourself?
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little bit about where you come from and where you grew up.
Okay. Kia ora. Kia ora, Corey, and kia ora to the Chew listeners here with us today. Yeah. I'm sure you've got some followers. We'll talk about that in a moment. Kia ora koutou. Ko Pearl Sidwell aho. Ngāti raukawa, Ngāti toa te Atiawa ngā iwi. Kapiti te motu, raukawa te moana, tararua te maunga, no whanganui a tara taku tōku kāinga, tamakima kaurau noho roa aho, ko tāhuna Queenstown taku kāinga I nai.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Oh, ka pai. So I glean from that you're from Wellington or from the Kapiti region. So were you born and raised there?
I was.
Yep.
I was. My mother, Tunya Baker, and my father, and he was an young Englishman, Michael Sidwell. They got together in Otaki. And I was born in Wellington.
Okay.
Yeah, I was brought up there.
You did all your schooling in Wellington?
I did. Yeah.
And what was that like growing up in Wellington?
Well, actually, initially we lived in Porirua.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Porirua until the age of 5, had that opportunity to be near my grandparents. We lived in the house next door. Back in the 1960s, there was a government policy called pepper potting, and they tried to spread all the Māori out, so you weren't allowed to live near your relatives. But my grandmother was very tenacious, and she managed to get us, state housing near one another. So I lived in Bedford Street, famous Bedford Street, and so had a lovely childhood there with sitting with my grandmother at her, kitchen table, all of that sort of thing. But our family split up, actually. I have 3 other sisters, and my mother wasn't so well. We went into Wellington.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we all went to Wellington, and then our family actually split up. So my time in Wellington was actually disconnected from my Māori whānau.
Really?
Yeah.
What caused that disconnection? Was it just the disconnect of the family? Was that the main reason?
It was, if we think about sort of intergenerational experiences, and these days we call it intergenerational trauma, but it's just life really that we all have. Yeah. My father, who was from England, had that experience of family breaking up.
Right.
And having experience of father saying he was going to come on Saturday, take them to the pictures, and then disappoint them and not do so, and eventually relationships break down. And he didn't want that to happen for us. So he pretty much pulled us right away from our mother's family.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
And so would you say you were sort of, in those years, you were not really brought up traditionally as a Māori person?
Yes, I would
Is
say
that.
Yeah, I would say. So I had, I think, a pretty interesting childhood as the result of that. My Irish-English grandmother came out and looked after us for a while to support my dad.
Yeah.
Like, he had 4 little girls under the age of 6 to look after, and then we sort of split up, and a couple of us went into a children's home, and a couple of us were fostered. So,
wow, really?
Yeah, and I think that I was one of the lucky ones, really.
Okay.
And from my experience of going into a children's home, which also was an orphanage and a hospital and a school, there were so many experiences that I was exposed to at a very young age, which I think had an impact on where I went to in my life. And I think as the sort of child that I was, I responded positively to what for many was a situation of challenge.
Wow, wow. And so you feel that those experiences shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Now, you mentioned sort of going into or having the foster situation involved there. So does that mean you were separated from your siblings for a little while?
My dad would... we would meet on the weekends, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, okay.
He'd walk, before he had a car, he'd walk quite a long way to pick us up and take us home. And so he kept the family together.
Wow.
And then we were lucky, a couple of years later, he by chance met an Australian woman and on a bus between Wellington to Rotorua, and she pinched his newspaper, started filling in the crossword, and he said, that's my paper. She said, oh, is it? And so they had morning tea at Live-In and lunch at Wanganui, and 2 days later they kissed, said goodbye, and a couple of years later she came back and was our mum for 37 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why I say I'm lucky. I had some very formative experiences and a wonderful stepmother.
Yeah. And so this might be a hard question, I'm not sure, but does that mean your relationship with your mum or your mum's family was strained?
I was disconnected,
right,
but hankering for that.
Yeah.
So at the age of 14, I was allowed to go and spend some time with my grandparents in Otaki, and I begged my father to extend that time in my school holidays. And I'm so glad that I did. I connected with my aunts and uncles who I knew had loved me, as a child.
Of course.
And so those were May school holidays, and by August my grandmother died.
Oh,
so,
no way.
Yeah, so I'm so pleased that 14-year-old made that journey to go find them and spend that time with them.
'Cause, you're quite young at 14. Sometimes you just take direction from your parents at that age, but you obviously had the strength to go, no, I need to go and do this.
Yeah, I had to fight for that.
Yeah, right.
To do that. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
And have strong memories of connecting with cousins and my aunts and uncles to this day. And that connects even today to some of the, Waitangi tribunal hearings that were going on at the time.
Yeah.
In that time, I sat at the table listening to Whatarangi Winiata and my granddad Martinga Baker talking about their dream for Generation 2000 and the development of a wānanga, which is now Te Wānanga o Raukawa.
Right.
So at the age of 14, I was sitting there with Pakeke Winiata listening to, these visionaries talk about that. So small moments in life can have a big impact on young people, which is why I've kind of stepped into working with young people.
Great. That's fantastic. Interesting story. Like, we've known each other a little while now, and I never knew any of this about you. It's great to have these chats and sort of and thank you for your honesty about it. Bringing it all up. So, where was that the moment that you felt like you started to reconnect with your culture as well? I wasn't totally disconnected from my culture being Māori because I knew that I was. Right.
So, going through school, I had really good educators through intermediate, and the nuns were really proactive in promoting, us as being Māori children.
Really?
It was very
Fantastic.
positive. Yeah. Well, the Mary O'Bear, Mother O'Bear, who established the Home of Compassion and the Sisters of Compassion, she started working with Māori up on the Whanganui River.
Right.
And so that, that sort of came through in the values of the nuns.
Yeah.
So that was a lovely thing. So that's why I say I've been lucky. I have had women in my life who have just reached out and shown love too. A child, rangatahi, supported.
Yeah.
Despite family circumstances.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so growing up, you sounded like from an early age you were quite level-headed and strong-willed as well.
I'd say pretty level-headed, yeah.
And so you weren't a mischief type? Like it sounds like you went to a Catholic school, but you were a good girl all the way through it?
No, I went to state schools. We were Protestant kids in a Catholic environment, so that was really unusual and different experience for me.
Yeah.
No, I think my father was a very impish sort of person, but my mother was outrageously impish. Okay. And I think that sort of came through in my personality as a child, but still level-headed, as you say, and enjoyed music and humour and stories that people have to tell. So I went to state schools in Wellington.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after high school, what did you do then?
Well, at the end of my sixth form year, my father invited me to leave home, and so...
It was quite normal back then.
Yeah, and so it was. And so he said it will be hard, and it wasn't. He was wrong. But another interesting thing, sort of before I got into my career, was that I thought I'd go to university. I was really interested in going to Cambridge or Oxford University when I was at school. So I did all the research on that and was filling in forms. And then I realised I couldn't afford to do that. So I looked at Victoria University and I thought, looked at what I was good at college, and I thought, maybe I'll go into social work, which was, I'd had that sort of, those values instilled in me as a child. And they said, and the advice was, no, don't go straight to university and do that. Go and get some experience. So I thought about, life experience, what does that mean? So I thought, I'll go work in a factory. So I went to Lyell Bay and I worked in a heater factory.
Nice.
And I turned up there and there was this great big, huge crate up to your waist full of nuts. And then there was another huge crate on the other side, and there was a machine in the middle. And so they said, okay, your job is to take one of those nuts and put them in the machine and put the machine down, and then take the nut off and put it in this vast empty crate over here. So I thought, okay, I'm getting life experience here. And anyway, I graduated after 2 hours and they put me on heaters. So they lined up 3 heaters and my job was to put 3 different brands on the same heater, So that was an interesting thing in terms of learning about business and branding at a young age too.
Right.
So unfortunately, I came off my girlfriend's 50cc motorbike around the gravel road then around Princess Bay, southern coast of Wellington. And so I came off, went on ACC, and during that time applied for a job, a proper job. And so I had a very interesting next job. So I'm 17 at this stage, and I went to work in the Ombudsman's office.
Right.
And
the Ombudsman for what in particular?
The Chief Ombudsman's office.
Oh, the Chief Ombudsman.
Yeah, in Wellington. So they accept complaints regarding government departments and associated government departments. Yeah. So so that was a really interesting job. I worked with who now is Sir Kim Workman, and so he's Ngāti Kahungu, Rangitane, and Matt Bennett, Ngāti Kahungu and Te Arawa. And I remember this was my first experience of racism, which was quite strange because we were in the Ombudsman's office. Human Rights, Peter Sharples had been working downstairs, and in my interview by Scotsman from Edinburgh, and there was an English woman as well in the interview, and Matt Bennett wasn't there, he was away that day, who I was to work with, and at the end of the interview he offered me the job.
Right.
And I don't know if it was my lovely long Māori hair, but apparently he liked that too. And he said to me, well, I hope you don't mind working with Matt. He's Māori.
Oh, right.
And
so they didn't realise you were Māori.
No. And so I sort of flicked my hair and said, well, I don't think that will be a problem. I'm Māori myself. And interesting for me about that, which could have been quite a crushing thing for a young person coming into an organisation thinking that's how they think, that's how the boss thinks. But this English woman sitting beside, who was actually a very good friend of his, she went and told everybody, one, what he said, but then what I said.
Cool.
And so I felt, as time went on, protected within that environment from this British racism.
Yeah.
And
that's great. So she had your back?
She did.
Yep.
She did. But also I was working with Kim Workman, who worked for, his portfolio was police, complaints against police and justice. And I worked with Matt Bennett as well. So there were the strong Māori men who I was working with.
Right.
But I had this opportunity at this young age my job in the day was to go get the mail.
Yeah.
Open the mail, date stamp it and read it. And so I had this opportunity on a daily basis to read some pretty serious complaints right the way across government.
Right.
But the most memorable ones were about complaints against the police and complaints by prisoners as to what was happening in prisons. So that was another eye-opening opportunity as well. Yeah, which led me to think about boys and prisoners and those boys and why they're in prison.
Right.
So that had an impact on what I did later.
Oh God. We could talk too long. I'd love to go through all of this with you, maybe in another episode.
It's a different topic. Yeah.
No. So what I want to do now is shift forward a little bit.
Yeah.
And talk about your decision to come to Queenstown. So how did that come about? Was it an organic thing? Was it accidental?
Well, I have just quickly in terms of the businesses I've been in the business of education all my life.
Right.
I trained as a teacher. I established a bilingual Māori class when I went. I did that after my OE to England. I went to England. I went to London, studied mime and theatre. With Desmond Jones for a couple of years. And when I came back, I went into teaching, which was actually something I'd always been interested in.
Yeah.
So I established a bilingual unit at Strathmore in Wellington, but then I went to a teacher in the next room invited me to go to a business entrepreneurial course,
right?
Which I did, and that just changed the direction of my life actually, and how I approach things. So that course was called Money and You. It was led by DC Cordova, Robert Kiyosaki. They were involved in a series of programs.
Robert Kiyosaki.
He wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. Yeah. So I followed them in their courses throughout New Zealand to Australia to Hawaii, did the business school over there. And so while I was teaching, and then I was, when I went on their course, I learned about goal setting. And so I was a teacher on a salary of $21,000 at the time. No, $19,000, going up to 21 after my 2 years of teaching. And so I set a goal to earn $40,000, which I thought in those days was a lot of money, you know. So within 3 months of setting that goal, I was offered a job as a lecturer at Teachers College. That was $39,998.
There you go.
And so that sort of went, okay, I should have asked for more.
Yes, you should readjust your goals now, right?
Yeah. But so that was great. So it was a quick turnaround from being a student and then going back as a lecturer for a year and then working on a drug and alcohol administration program for teachers.
Yeah.
And it was there that I was working, Kiri Carr as well. Yeah. Auntie Kiri was there. So that was really lovely.
Did you work with Kiri Carr?
Well, she was actually a very good friend of my mother's.
Wow.
And they had gone to Queen Victoria School for Māori Girls in Auckland, and Tungi was slightly older than her, but they were really good friends. And both of them, we had a commemoration for Auntie Kiri, who passed away during COVID.
Yep.
I couldn't get to the her tangi, but can I just talk about this?
Sure.
You can always cut it out.
Why not? No.
Kiri Ka was a really significant Māori woman of her generation.
Oh, absolutely.
They were
especially Te Ngāti Porou.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was involved in supporting Māori in the arts, performing arts, writing arts, in that toi Māori. She was a teacher and educator, a composer, kaikaranga, and she was just so staunch and hilariously funny. And again, when I reconnected with my mother after the age of 16, sitting in the back of a little Mini listening to those two cackle and talk and gossip, it was just absolutely wonderful and inspiring, because they were always working on projects to uplift Māori through creative, and interesting ways. And so, I like to think that I follow behind my mother.
Nice.
In many ways. But so I went into education, and then jumped out of education into business, and started running Empower Education with my husband Peter Orangi since 1991. And so we ran courses for rangatahi Māori and Pacific courses called Tūtauira throughout the country. Yep. And I was also doing my own training in what we called accelerated learning in those days. So I became a facilitator of training for teachers and lecturers and tutors and corporate people. So that work took me working throughout New Zealand. I worked in Malaysia and Singapore. Yep. In India. I had an opportunity to work in India as well. So that's where my interest in education took me.
Right.
Because I was really interested in...
So were you combining education and business at the same time? Was that the sort of intent?
Yes, it was. Right. Because there was... in our Tūtauira programs, we were working with young Māori and looking at their goals, looking at the challenges that they had had in the past, perhaps looking at how they could step over them, how they were common to many of us in a room. We'd have seminars of 60, 90 or 120 kids, coming together. And so they were very powerful programs and designed based on these accelerated programs that I'd been trained in and learning. And so the work there, I realised that something was missing. And what it was financial education. The financial education to actually achieve the goals and the dreams that you have. Yeah. And so I stopped doing that for a while and went on my own journey and went into providing financial education programs for adults through Robert Kiyosaki. So we promoted his programs, promoted his games. And he had a really strong heart. He has a really strong heart for Māori as well, because he was brought up in Hawaii. And so he had Hawaiian friends who weren't doing as well as the others, and he questioned that. And so when he came to New Zealand, that was the Māori people that he really connected with. So we took him off to our marae, took him to Takupuahia in Te Tahi Bay. He just loved that sort of thing. Yeah. So whenever I'd see him, in whatever country I'd see him, that was the connection. Right. It was my Māori connection with Robert that drew us together. Right. And so he and DC called over as well. And at one point, she offered scholarships to take some Māori rangatahi to a business school for teens in Los Angeles. Yep. So we had a great opportunity to do that at one point.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we had 5 weeks to raise $5,000 per person. And that in itself was the course. Yeah. And,
okay, right. Yeah, it's
really.
It's like the assessment at the end of the courses to make sure everyone got to that 5,000 per target.
Well, we had. She gave me that offer. Mm-hmm. I'd been to business school. She gave me that offer. I came back and I was on a follow-up course. So these kids had taken we're on to next level, and so I said, well, who would be interested in going to a accelerated business school school for teens in Los Angeles, and like all the hands go up, you know.
Yeah, right.
And I said, well, what if I told you it was in 5 weeks' time, and sort of, you know, who would be interested? And about 60 hands sort of went up, you know. And I said, and it'll cost $5,000. So 30 hands went up, and 30 people sort of joined, signed up.
Yeah.
And we just had 5 weeks in which to learn. We all had to, because we needed chaperones as well, you know, to learn how to hustle.
Hustle,
We had to hustle. Everyone had to hustle.
Yeah.
And
so what, did you just do the fundraising and stuff like that? What?
Yeah, there was a little, everything, you know, everything that you do.
Up companies to sponsor and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as well?
they hit up education sponsorship and people, and there was some hangi things that were being sold,
packs,
you know, hangi packs. And we all had to hustle, and the adults had to do it as well.
Yeah.
So we would meet together and just, you know, work on that.
Yeah.
And in the end, 12 went.
Oh, wow.
Māori and Pacific kids, went. And so by the time, when they turned up, you know, these American kids, their rich parents have sent them on this course, and our kids storm up the front, they sit down in the front seats, and they're ready, you know, give it to us, because they were so on fire just to have got there, and they got there themselves.
Yeah, right.
So that was one of the exciting things.
Cool. So I'm hoping somewhere in their stories you're going to stitch in how you ended up in Queenstown.
Yeah, I will. And so how I ended up here was I go slightly off to Otaki. We were going to sell up and move to Otaki, where I could really get on my reo journey there at the Wānanga, but I got sidetracked into a new modern school in Ormiston Junior College, and I was there for 4 years. It's a fabulous school led by some wonderful leaders.
Yeah.
And so instead of flying to Otaki, I ended up, because my daughter had bought a house here that needed renovating, I ended up flying over Otaki and landed in Queenstown as her project manager.
Oh, okay, cool. And so
that's how I got here.
Right. And so when you got here and you started doing that, was it the idea to stay long term anyway, or was it like hey, I quite like this place, I might stay a little longer?
Well, it's your fault really. When I was coming, I don't know how many followers you've got on the Chew, or if you've got followers on Arrowtown Dad.
Oh yeah, I've got more on that for sure. Yeah.
But I reached out on Facebook to find out where Māori, if there were Māori in town and what was happening, and you were the person who responded.
Oh, right. Yeah. I always respond to people who ask me about Māori stuff in Queenstown.
So you said that there was a manatahuna. We're having a post-COVID get-together down on the green on the Memorial Green.
Memorial Green, yeah, I remember that.
So that was in 2021.
Yeah.
And so I turned up for that.
That's right. And you were filming us, and I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Here she is.
Because I'm filming like you do, because I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
I've been long-term events photographer, a tangi photographer, and I'm showing people what's going on here in Tahuna. Look at these Māori people, you know, they're all here. Which is really funny, because that was my first impression. People say, oh, I don't think there are no Māoris in Queenstown. No Maoris in Queenstown.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know. You know, got the result. And so I talked. So there was Darren Leary, and he was talking, and there was Mike up on the sausages, Mike Leary, and there was you playing the guitar, and there were these Māori and fair people, and you can't tell.
No, you can't tell.
With the South Islanders who's Māori and who's not, because they're like those Patu Paraire people, you know, you can't tell. And so it's like, oh, wow. So something really is rocking here. This is cool. But then what kept me in Queenstown is this idea of following, you know, and so you invited me to the te reo course that you were running in the library.
That's right, yeah.
And that was so cool. You're such a wonderful teacher to be in the presence of. You make it so easy, and you're funny, and you've got just a very obviously caring heart, and very real, and you listen to people's questions and just answer them in a very real way, and engage people, all those different people. So I enjoyed coming to those, and then you had these women up the front there, and I could tell they were supporting you. Turned out to be Caro and Susan. They were there, and I could see how they were there regularly supporting as well.
That's right.
And then I ended up randomly 11 o'clock at night being asked by Tracy Cameron's company, ICANN Modelling and Talent, to go and be a extra on One Lane Bridge.
Ah, yeah, that's right.
So this is like my little steps in Tahuna. So I turn up, you're there, and Darren's there.
Yeah.
I met Ratawiki.
That's right,
and
Rata was there.
so this is just like another little experience I'm having coming into Tahuna. This is cool. And so I turned up as an extra, and
you ended up doing an amazing karanga.
Yeah, well, you were going to do it, and then so Darryl Leary was the Māori cultural advisor, and he did his job because we're sort of muttering about what it is that they'd planned as this tūpapaku goes out of the morgue, which was behind the memorial, hall, and I said, oh well, we'd usually karanga at that point, as the car's driving off, and so he went and had a chat, and they came back and asked us to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
because it wasn't part of the plan.
No, it wasn't.
No, the plan was just a karakia, and that was it. But the karanga just added that layer to it. That was wicked. It was so
good,
well done. Yeah.
And the best thing about it is that I made $500 extra that day because I was doing a speaking part.
Of course, because we're featured extras, I think
we were, we're a featured extra instead of just an extra. But
hey, you know the other thing, right?
What?
Do you know that both of us are on IMDb now?
No.
Because we are credited actors officially.
Oh.
So we're on the
No, I did not know that.
Internet Movie Database.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my mother's, they've just launched one yesterday with my mother on it. Oh, you should see that. Tungia Baker. Yeah. Whoa, big time. Oh, that's funny.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I talk to people who are actors.
Yes.
And they've often said, oh, I'm trying to get myself onto the Internet Movie Database because once you get there, it's things. And I'm like, what's this thing? And they
You're there forever.
Yeah, you are there forever. They said, the Internet Movie Database, because once you're a accredited actor, the production companies put your names into it.
Right,
so
okay.
I Googled it and saw my name on there. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, have a look at that.
Yeah.
The real significant thing for me, not the $500 was extra $500 on top, was that for me, I'm on my real journey as a colonised person, like heavily colonised person.
Yeah.
And so I get to my age, and what my context for really having to push myself to become more proficient in my reo, because I have struggled learning over the years, but I've never actually done like a 1 year full-time course, which is what I really should have done. Yeah. And so the context for my learning is karanga.
Yeah.
Now, my mother was a kai karanga. She loved language and karanga and creating karanga. But I am in a whānau, and I look around, when you're looking for the oldest person to be the kai karanga in certain situations, usually in tangi, and everybody's stepping back, and I look around and I'm one of the oldest.
I know.
But I still feel like one of the kids.
I know.
And
I feel the same.
It's like far out. And
people look at you like it's your turn to do something, So
I know. And then people go, well, you were born in October and I was born in July, so you're older than me, so I don't have to do it. You know, that kind of,
getting like that.
Everybody's really lining up the birthdays.
Yeah.
And so that sense of responsibility, it does come because I come behind my tipuna, and we can go, you know, way back to Hene Titama, but, you know, there's my grandmother and my mother, and when people see me, they see my mother.
Yeah.
And so I can't hide.
Yeah.
I can't go around the back of a crowd if it's going to be on me. So my context for my reo is around, it gives me a stronger push.
Yeah.
And so it's around kai karanga.
Yeah, cool.
And so in that moment, $500, in that moment, there was a gift there for me personally, because I'd come here to Tahuna and I'd met Darren, I'd met you, I'd met these Māori people in a very short space of time, and this opportunity to karanga, it just hit me in the stomach. It's like, oh, there's something here for you.
And remember, this was going to be broadcast nationwide.
It was one
on a fairly popular New Zealand TV show.
Yeah,
so there's that sort of element.
That pressure.
Yeah.
We both must have had it.
Oh, I had it. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they're going to see it.
I know.
You know, they're going to see it.
They're going to pick holes in what I'm saying. I better say it properly.
I know. So it really made that moment important to say the right kupu.
Absolutely.
So that the kupu that was heard, people wouldn't laugh at that or sneer at that.
Yeah.
And also to act in such a way that even though we were acting, that sense of responsibility still came through. And I think it was filmed really beautifully.
I think so too. Do you... See, I didn't even feel like I was acting. Like when I'm in a Māori bubble, I just feel like, you know, doing things properly, doing our tikanga and performing those duties properly, even in a fake situation like we were, a TV show, I just felt like you had to give it everything as if it was you were standing on the pipe doing it. Yeah.
Same.
So
it was a special moment.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was so good. And just remember that you are now on the Internet Movie Database, Pearl.
Thank you.
Oh, well, it wasn't me that did it. It was a production company. But, they will put our names in there. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what I was saying was that I came in, Mana Tahuna was my introduction.
Yeah, right.
You were my introduction. Waiata tia ngā manu hau. And then there was you and Darren again in this movie. Michael was the ghost.
Yeah, that's right.
And then as a teacher, I was curious because you were doing maurako.
Yeah.
And so and as a teacher, I was interested to go and see what they were doing with the rangatahi over there. And you invited me to maurako on a Sunday. So I turned up to watch.
Yeah.
And
of course, you're not allowed to watch, not with Matua Ned around.
No, and then I met Matua Ned Webster Wepiha. Oh, so next person in my puzzle, you know, that's coming together. And so you guys, and you as one of the leaders, invited me in, and I wasn't really dressed for it, but it was like oh God. And then I looked across the room, and there was Emily Churnside was in the room.
Emily.
And I didn't realise, but it was her first time there too.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I thought this was a space for tāne, and I look across at her and there's a wahine, and she looks across at me and she sees a wahine, and then I'm invited to go in. So the best I could do was just take off my shoes, you know, whatever. The gears weren't quite appropriate, but anyway, and I just jumped in and did it. And then I was invited back. And so here was another real learning opportunity.
That's right.
And, you know, the challenge learning that reo was also there for me, and hearing like
spoken.
My father would say, I've got cloth ears, you know. I'm not strongly auditory. My husband is, he'll remember everything that was ever said. He's a journalist. But not me. So I committed to doing that. And that was really great. And I developed a back injury. Remember the day I fell over, got concussion?
Hit your head.
I had concussion for a couple of weeks and a big bump on my head.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. It was just that my back injury was stopping me from, I couldn't do that, te pata pata and all of those types of things, I just couldn't, I could hardly jump a few inches off the ground.
Yeah.
But so that was another thing. And your reo classes led me to go to Te Wānanga o Aotearoa SIT.
That's right.
I did the first year, then I'm just completed and successfully the second year to level 4. Yoo-hoo!
Yeah.
And we're celebrating tonight.
That's right.
Going bowling, as you do. And looking forward to going to level 5 next year.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah. So there have been a number of things. So when you talk, don't know about your followers on the Chew or don't know about your followers on Arrowtown Dad, and I'm one of them. But I've also been following you around the traps here, and it's what's kept me here.
Yeah.
And it's what led me to settle and to develop some of the ideas that I'm interested in developing.
But to be fair, since you've been here, you've been blazing your own trail. It's quite obvious. You do so much work in this community now. I kind of think I do a bit of work in the community, but the thing is, everywhere I go, you're there. I'm like, oh my God, is there anything that Pearl doesn't come and support? So
Corey. That's what a follower is.
No.
I'm following you, mate. No. I'm following you.
No, but then I'm on Facebook and you're doing all this other stuff, and I'm like, how the hell did you get time to go to Wellington and all this stuff?
We have to, eh?
Yeah.
Often as Māori, we have to go home and do stuff. Home. Yeah, got to go home and do work, do my hair, and I've just never done enough, But well, then the other thing was KUMA.
Yeah.
So. So there were very early little connections that I made within a few weeks, and KUMA was one of them. So I had a connection through that home children's home that I referred to.
Yeah.
One of my Mary Geddes has a relative called Mel Wright, who was working for KUMA here.
That's right.
And Mel Wright invited me to the KUMA meeting over at the coffee club one morning.
Yep.
And that's where I met Carmela Rapata and Maria. And Hud was there. Can't remember who else was there, but I just remember.
Well, those three are hard to miss.
Yeah. And then the next meeting was at Bus Stop Cafe.
Yeah.
And which is the connection to Tracy Cameron, whose husband owns Bus Stop Cafe.
Yep.
And there I remember meeting Marlena.
Yes.
Te Kani Rata Wiki.
Yep.
And that was a significant little, and we were all masked up,
Of course.
So and in the SIT course, I couldn't recognise anyone in the street because we're all wearing masks.
Masks, yeah.
And when people took their masks off, eventually, it was like someone.
Is that what you look like?
Someone taking out their false teeth. People look so different. But my point is that I met people masked up, at meetings, and they became friends and collaborators in these projects. So, that's why I come back to KUMA as well, because the vision that KUMA have for Māori in business is something that's probably one of the key things for me, settling here as well.
Fantastic. So I'm going to move focus and talk a little bit about your company, Queenstown Fashion Week. So tell us how that started.
Queenstown Fashion Week, where that idea came from, I have to source that idea. I was a business mentor for a Māori fashion designer, Janine Clarkin, on Waiheke. And she's been a fashion designer for 30 years, significant Māori designer. And we were just going through what she needs to do in terms of her business to move forward. One of her interests is bringing Taiao, the Taiao Māori and Te Ao Māori together. Those are interests of hers as well as her fashion design, sustainable fashion design. And so she was interested in running courses for Māori interested in design, but she will take them out into nature and get inspiration, then bring that back into the workspace and work on designs, and then at the end of that create a show. So we were talking about that, but the question was how to do that in a sustainable way. Because for a lot of the Māori young people that she knew, the rangatahi, and not just rangatahi, also people who had wanted to be designers in their lives but sort of missed the boat, they were able to lock on as well. And so it's that idea that I've wanted to bring down here. So we have we've been designing a business model to make that more sustainable, which involves international students coming onto that program as well.
Yep.
So our idea was that, and then that was the summer of 2020, and then I came down to Queenstown 2021. And as our conversation continued, we realised that actually running a Māori fashion design program on Waiheke could also be run in Queenstown, and if we were looking at international students getting involved, they could be perhaps doing a gap year in between their design course or something like that.
Yeah.
They would land in Auckland, go to Waiheke, beautiful place, but their first meeting is with Māori.
Right.
Get in touch with nature from a Māori perspective. Look at doing some designs, have a community fashion show, do their tiki tour of Aotearoa and end up in Queenstown.
Right.
And do that again.
Yeah, right.
So that was the concept.
Yeah,
and
cool.
So from that I thought, well, Queenstown Fashion Week sounds like a thing.
Yeah.
Because Janine's been going to London, Paris Fashion Week, and I thought, we've got New Zealand Fashion Week, and then there's Dunedin Fashion Week. But I thought, London Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Queenstown Fashion Week sounds really good. And it just so happens that that's where I've landed.
Cool.
And so the bigger idea is that that's a possibility. But what I'm really interested in is developing first Māori artists and designers and makers and people who are interested in that in this area.
Yeah, right.
I'm interested to see if there are rangatahi who are interested, if there are wannabes who wish they had but now can, who are interested in coming together in workshops and developing a show, and maybe one day going to New Zealand Fashion Week and maybe going to London, Paris, just for fun.
Yeah.
So I have a carrot idea. I'd like to draw in rangatahi, and as one of the eventual awards, we send 2 rangatahi from Queenstown to London and Paris Fashion Week, and that's their reward. A smaller one would be to send them from Queenstown to New Zealand Fashion Week.
Right.
I established that company in 2022.
Yep.
And then in 2023, KUMA were having their annual awards here in Tahuna.
Yeah.
And Carmela had heard my story over the few years that she'd known me. And she invited me. She was thinking of something that could be really wonderful, as part of the awards.
Yeah.
And she established this showcase. So there was an opportunity to actually kickstart. So through KUMA, we've kickstarted Queenstown Fashion Week with a Māori Pacific focus.
Yeah, cool.
And so I said yes, and Tracy Cameron was also, when I went to the first KUMA meeting, someone said, you've got to go and talk to Tracy Cameron.
Yeah.
And I went over to Bus Stop and had a conversation, a kōrero with her, and she grilled me on my intentions, and thinking about people who can't afford to do those sort of courses and who do you think you are?
Well, she brings that sort of the other side to the...
She does, and I so appreciated it.
Yeah,
and
cool.
So for me, I've been building relationships over these last few years, so that when Carmela asked if I'd like to do it, Tracy knew what I was talking about. Tracy has experience in fashion shows.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, right.
I'm just the visionary and the business mentor. And so we went to and organised this in a very, very short space of time.
Yeah.
But this team of wahine, Carmela Rapata of KUMA, Tracy Cameron of ICANN, Models and Talents, and myself, it was such a thrill to work together and pull that together, because what we were able to do was to showcase one, Māori and Benny, Pacific Island fashion designers, and we didn't know what was going to come through, what they were going to bring, but what they brought was amazing, incredible, eye-poppingly amazing. Like, I could feel I was opening my eyes so that I could take in what I was seeing. Some of it was very, very incredible. There was Roka Hurihia.
Yeah, that's right.
Cameron. Fire Ruka. There was, how embarrassing if I forget people's names in an exciting moment. Simone Montgomery, Amber Bridgman, and
Amber,
Nikki White, and Benny Taihia.
Right.
So it was small and intimate at the Bus Stop Cafe. And then, so there were these amazing experienced designers, and then I wanted to showcase rangatahi. So I put a focus on bringing in Māori rangatahi who are on the edges of our Māori community, and put them smack bang in the middle with these amazing designer costumes. So they had a fabulous time as well. And so for me, going forward in the future, what I'd like to see is that, Benny had come back from New Zealand Fashion Week, and he came home. You know, he's from Arrowtown. He lives in Arrowtown. He's been here a number of years. He came home and showed his community what he'd shown at Queenstown Fashion Week, and that's what I want us to do. So next year after September, I want to do that again. That whoever goes away or has done something comes back, and in September through Queenstown Fashion Week and with Tracy Cameron and ICANN models, put on that show to show our community what people here have been doing.
Cool. So with organising that show, what were some of the challenges that you came up against?
Like, I have personal challenges, you know, in developing as an entrepreneur or a business person. And sometimes the challenge for me personally is reaching out and asking for support and help. That's a personal challenge for me, but it's good to have other people on your team who are good at that type of thing. So that's what I love about working in teams.
Right. So do you have trouble with delegating? Do you always want to be in there and doing it?
No. No, if it was up to me to do it, it wouldn't happen.
Really?
What you really need are people who are good at what they do, and what I'm really about is shining a torch on people's abilities to do parts of puzzles, you know, parts of what they do, and drawing people in for that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, cool. To finish off our chat today, thank you so much for like all these insights, especially all the insights about what's happening in our local community, because we all know that you're quite an integral part of all the little projects that are going on within the community. So I love everything you shared about your experiences, and especially around the fashion stuff. That's something that I'm not a fashiony person, so you'll never see me like, you know, at many of those things.
It's just a context. It's not about fashion. It's about developing people and our community. So I just have one quick fire question for you. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? I would say learn te reo Māori full time.
Nice, good one.
Yeah, I would certainly say that. And I would say if you have an idea that sticks around in your head, do it.
Nice. Good one. And so that almost wraps up our chat for today.
Kia ora, Corey. Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, my name is Pearl Sidwell. You can troll me on Facebook. Yeah, that's probably the easiest thing. But I'm Pearl Sidwell at iCloud.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And do you have any last comments before we sign off?
Well, I'm really grateful to you, Corey. Really. I'm here today because I've been following you and because you have such a great heart for people and you have skills that help to develop in such a kind way.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Your alter ego, the Arrowtown Dad, is just really puts us in touch with what's real and you say the things that we sometimes think, which makes it so funny. That's truly the humour. And I think your love for people and our culture, for all people, I see that you're developing not just Māori but Pākehā people in this community through love and humour. It's just the best thing.
Oh,
you must be so satisfied. You can go to your grave happy. You know?
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you for picking up on that. I do have little hidden messages, like I wrap it around in humour, but it's stuff that I actually want to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
God,
So,
and some of the things that you say is like, it's those cringy things, you know, but it's true. It's the truth.
Yeah, cool.
You know. So the truth. Yeah. So thank you for that. Thanks for your contribution. You're a real rangatira in this area.
I don't like to be thought
you
of
are
as
the
being
taonga of Ngāti Porou here in Tāhuna. And
kia ora.
we're so grateful to have you.
Yeah.
You know, I think of you, when I think of our rangatira, I think of you, I think of Matua Ned Webster Wepeha and Darren Rewi, and just holding us together through the work that you do.
And you do so much, Pearl. Like, you are such a connected person. You've got a really awesome manner, and you're able to connect with people at that level, at this level. You've got that. That's a skill, I think, to be able to connect with people at all levels.
Thank you.
It's not everybody has that.
Thank you.
So, nō reira, e mihi atu nei ki a koe e taku rangatira. Thank you so much for coming in and having an awesome kōrero.
Kia ora.
Love this. I've been meaning to catch up with you at some point to do this.
I know.
So, and e te iwi, if you have any questions, if you have any comments that you want to make, questions for Pearl, pop them down in the comments section, and remember to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time on The Chew. Mā te wā.
Mā te wā.